Yeah.
Hello, how's everybody?
And whatever people want to take.
See. Oh,
All right. So, Alan, did you get your new computer yet?
I have ordered it, and I'm praying that it'll be here by Wednesday. So I've been working like a dog to get ahead, if that's at all possible.
Yeah, I saw that. That's a smart thing to do. I have a story. It's not it's not a good one. I work off laptops, have for years. I have several of my own everywhere I am. I carry it with me, and so my desk. So I had one in my office at Gardner Webb, in the education building, and it finally died. And so I said I just want to replace the laptop, and they said no, we don't do laptops. I said, well, I have a laptop. Y'all, well, but you did that when you were in a different role. We don't. So I said, well, I'd rather not have anything if I have to have a desktop. And so they said, okay, we'll get you a laptop. 8 months later, my laptop arrived. It only took 8 months. I hope that you're hoping for 8 hours. It'll probably be 8 days, and it might be 8 months. So
I think like I said in the email, the craziest part is it's like I'm just literally going 500 feet away. It turns into a different cost center.
I know. I mean, it's so
admin 101. But the thing is, and the crazy thing is, I just got this one like 2.5 months ago, and I just got it where I like it. So I was like,
well, of course, that's the way it always works. Just when you get something that works, they take it away from you. I know. I get it. That's how it always works. The bureaucracy in action. All right. Well, I've got 7 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being with us tonight. I think I'll probably be solo tonight. Doctors Tobias and Massengill may be with us a little bit later. Dr. Stedman is going to check on one of our students who had a health issue this afternoon, and so he'll get back with us if he gets back from the hospital in time. And we'll let him fill you in on that one. So prayers for Anthony. He's having some issues today. Before we get started this evening, as we always do, let's go to our weekly schedule and remind us where we are. This is more for me, I'm afraid, than you. The older you get, the more you can't remember. All right, so today's June 3rd. This is week 3. We're moving into working with special populations this week. Discussion board activity. You should be about to OMA Task 3 by now, or getting there, and most of you are. I see Katie's with us. Katie, if you'll wave, she's got coffee. I want to call Katie out. She's our first winner. She has completed her OMA. She turned her task 4 in today, and it was great. And so she is now compiling her 4 tasks into her final evidence narrative to be uploaded in the Turnitin check and into the OMA Dropbox, assignment Dropbox. So she is our first completer of the season. Congratulations to Katie. But everybody's doing great. Everybody's really doing great on the OMA. I got one from Nathan today. Davidson County, really good. And it was 1 and 2. So as I told you, since 2 is simply copy and paste from the AppTel, you blow right through that stop sign and go right on into task 3. Beginning to see those, some good schedules. Please remember, let me make sure that I stress this. Please remember, on your task 3, you do not have to implement the schedule. That is not a part of, well, I didn't get it implemented, or we're waiting, or we're in holding pattern because of COVID. No, You just have to propose it. You know, have it ready to be proposed. You don't physically have to propose it now. I'd like that you did, that you shared this with your administration, but that's not a requirement. So don't let that hold you up on task 3. And so make sure that you do that. And then, of course, you know how to do task 4. That's just your competency analysis. And so we will blow right into, hopefully later this evening, my last segment of the evening will be on the skip, because obviously we have some folks who are getting ready to start the skip, and so I will do a quick coverage of the skip again this evening. So I'll write myself a note on that. Some shout outs from last week, I think. On task activity 2 from discussion board, Kishlin, Zelbra, Ingrid, I think y'all kind of hit the nail on the head when you stressed outside doors and inside doors being unlocked. That's the one thing, folks, that we can fix. Now, some things like not having cameras and things like that, but there's no excuse, as they pointed out, made an excellent point. There's no excuse for unlocked doors. That's just want to. That's not about your resources. That's not about policy. That's just people being inconvenienced. So thank you for those of you. And so I'll move on into this week. So this week we looked at exceptional children. We started looking at our special services, exceptional children. We looked at our intervention teams. All of these things greatly affect the master schedule, because they should come first in our scheduling process. We got to put those big chunks in places, and then we kind of have to schedule around them. Federal law comes first, and all these programs are federal programs: federal law, state law, board, local board policy, EVOS, teacher input. And so we're beginning to look and see, oh my, and these are big rocks that we have to get in place. Intervention teams, as we did this week on our intervention, we're beginning to figure out where are we in the MTSS process. As I was reading them this week, Kenneth Jackson's in a C2 group. He's in a school that's just starting. And then we've got Andrea, who's at Edmonville in Henderson County, and they're full blown. They're all the way. But you're somewhere between being started to mandate on the July 1 this year and having pretty much nothing. So Kenneth kind of outlined what they had been doing, to all the way to Andrea in Henderson County that are already at the full 90 days, plus the 90 days. Their MTSS is already fully vested. So you're somewhere in the middle. You need to find out where you are, understanding that eventually everybody's going to have to be at least at 60 days. And with the idea that eventually, hopefully, everybody will go to 90 in before the 90-day federal one. But you got to know those things. That kind of thing affects your schedule as well, because you may have to do some RTI, some relooping, response to intervention, where you do flexible grouping and regroup kids. But you got to have time, and it's got to be built in, and it's got to be a normal thing. If we say, well, we'll just do it, and we don't plan for that flexible grouping of RTI, it won't happen. I've told you the story of an elementary school in my home district, in the town where I live, not where I am tonight. I'm at our vacation home tonight, but I live at Lake Norman. My hometown is Cornelius, and the elementary school there is Cornelius Elementary. A new one opened in the same town because of the growth at Lake Norman, Washam Elementary School, and one of the teachers that I hired and mentored, he became principal there, Ray G. So Ray G's the principal, and they're doing RTI, and it's not they're getting no results. And so I went and did the audit, and I told the story where they got the same scores 3 years in a row. And I said, we have no program. He said, sure we do. I said, but no, that's not the way research works. We don't see any impact, then that means you doesn't have a program. So I went, what I found is they were leaving it up to teachers to arrange their own flex time to teach those prescriptive lessons, where they had to regroup the kids, and one teacher had to take the group that needed this lesson, and this group took them to the specials, and this group took them to PE or whatever, and that wasn't happening. The teachers couldn't get along. They felt like one was, getting taken advantage of, so they just didn't do it. It was not built into their daily schedule to do their intervention plan. The RTI, which is one of the first levels of, that's tier 1 in MTSS, is response to intervention, or some kind of a flexible grouping where you reteach lessons based on need, differentiated lessons. It wasn't happening. So all these things affect that master schedule of what goes on in your building every day. Do we have anybody on with us tonight that does RTI at their school at an elementary level? Would like to speak to how they flex group in order to do those lessons? Anybody would like to do that? Okay. I haven't read anybody that mentioned that they did that yet. I just thought I would ask if there was somebody with us tonight that had done that. Sometimes I have classes where we have folks who do that. But that's a big part of it is those flexible lessons. And so this week, it was about finding out what your school offers, because remember, that's a school-based committee. Although it has federal protection and it dovetails into a federal program, the state says you're responsible for it as a principal. There's federal law behind it, but you're the principal and you're responsible to make sure that it happens. So you need to know what's going on in your building, what your district expectation is. Where are you on that continuum from just going to start next month to already fully vested in the 90 days prior to the federally mandated 90 days. So that was this week's discussion board. Let me get that out of the way. All right. Let me go to discussion board. All right, so coming up for next week, and I'm already starting to get some responses, is bullying, harassment, cyberbullying. I have a document for you under week 5. I went ahead and put it, it's under week 5, because we're skipping. Remember, next week is our case study. We're going to talk about that. So we won't get to this. We won't get to this one until a week after next because of our case study. So under week 5, I've got let's see if I can find it here. Here we go. I've got the cyberbullying penalty, statute and penalty. Now, and it talks about all the things, bullying and cyberbullying, and here's the law. Here's the thing to remember about cyberbullying. If it disrupts, and I think Alan responded on that, he was the first one to get to this one, in Charleston County down in South Carolina. He was talking about gray area. It is gray, but here's the real bottom line on cyberbullying. Doesn't matter where it happened. Doesn't matter whose device it was. You don't have to prove that it happened on school grounds or if they used a school computer. None of that stuff is matter. If it disrupts the school environment, then you need to take steps to stop it. Now, if anything about it looks to be sexual at all, you need to stop and get it to police. You know, if any of the messages, any of the pictures, any of those things have sexual content, you need to get it to the police because they have subpoena power. I've told the story, the high school again in my hometown in Cornelius, Amos Huff High School, was a student there who was showing pictures of naked or partially or fully naked girls from the middle school next door, Bailey Road. And he was 18 years old, and assistant principal that I had trained, I'd already retired and moved into this job, but I had trained, saw the pictures, confiscated the phone, called the police department, and maintained the chain of evidence. Come to find out, he was having sex with underage girls, and he was 18, and had a ring of pictures and was selling pictures, and it got really, really ugly. But he didn't just say, well, put your phone away. Don't be doing that here or any of those. He did the right thing. So if you see anything sexual in nature, remember, you're not qualified to do sexual investigations, and you don't have subpoena power. You need to make sure you get those devices, or you get police involved in those things. Now, I have heard principals say, well, you know, that cyberbullying, that was repealed. I don't have to be bothered with this. That is not correct. That's a way to lose your house. The part of the cyberbullying law that was repealed was the Twitter war. So now, if you're in a Twitter war with somebody else and you start losing, you can't claim that you've been a victim of cyberbullying. If you actively participated in a Twitter war or Facebook or whatever, and your side starts losing, that is not cyberbullying if you were participating. Other than that, the law is in place, all the penalties, and it talks about all the different things. It doesn't matter where it happens. It can happen in the chat room, email. None of that stuff matters. This is a modern problem. You know, I heard a fellow say the other day that somebody had scratched the paint on his new Mercedes, and I thought, that's rich people problem. This is modern people problems, because all of our kids now have cell phones. They all have devices. They have Twitter accounts. They have, by the time a kid comes to school now, they're already hooked into social media of the world. By the time they come to school, they know how to use phones, email, social media platforms. By the time that we get them, this is a modern problem. It's not like, whoa, you know, when we get to high school, it's going to be trouble, or, you know, when this group they're here. This is a modern problem, and you better learn to deal with it, because it can get away from you so fast. It can rile up communities. We see what's going on in our nation, and I pray for our nation, but we see how these posts, these tweets, how that just incites people. And that's what it is. That's the cyberbullying. That incites people and creates such a disruption, especially with young people. You're going to have to get involved in cyberbullying. I hate that I have to spend our time, your time, that we have to worry about this in school. But I'm just telling you, it's got to be dealt with. Yeah, Ingrid made a great point. Touchscreen generation. Every kid born in this century is touchscreen generation. 20 years, man, I tell you, they know it all, and they don't think. They hit send before they ever think, and not understanding what damage that they do, and what the impact that has on our systems. You know, all these anarchists that want to tear our systems down. You don't have to use guns and rifles. You can use social media.
Words, yeah.
That is it. I try to stay out of politics as best I can. I'm so angry about what I see that goes on every day. I'm not sure I'm rational to speak about things, but it's you know, one good thing about cameras, phones, and social media, we're beginning to understand that maybe people have been telling us the truth a long time about some of the things that have been going on in the world, that we just didn't want to believe, that we now see the truth because we've got videos. And so I said that not for the political part, but to say this. We're not going to ban we're not going to ban phones and social media. That's not going to happen. That was my generation's response. Remember, I left the principalship in the year 2000 and did another dozen years in the central office. But my generation, you know, baby boomers born between 1945 and 1959. Is that my generation group? Our response was, we'll just ban them. We just won't let them carry them. We'll stop this. We'll nip it in the bud. Yeah, you can tell what a smart group we were. You're not going to stop it. That is not the solution. That's not the answer. The answer to cyberbullying is, we'll just take everybody's phone. No, you won't. Nor should you. Cell phones have become the greatest thing to fight social injustice that I've seen in my lifetime. Taking videos. You're not going to stop social media platforms. You're not going to stop cell phones and cameras. You better learn. You better have some policies. You better get in front of it. You better deal with it. You better not stick your head in the sand and claim, oh, it's not my problem. I don't know where that text came from. If it didn't come from a school computer, I don't have to know. You're just an idiot. And you deserve to lose your job. You don't know any more than that. Yeah. Kishna says they've got some that are, using social media inappropriately. Yeah. I think we got to get in front of this, and we got to start teaching our students early. I mean, I'm talking about in the lower primary grades, how to use social media correctly. Mm-hmm. I think that's the answer. Banning it is not the answer. That only makes them want it more. We need to start teaching lessons, just like we teach young kids how to wash their hands. We teach them about nutrition. We teach them all these life skills when they're in primary grades. Well, I think media communications is a life skill as well. We ought to be teaching it right along and get in front of it. How to use it properly. Think before you sin. Understanding that you can't bully on any platform, which would be a much better solution than my generation's we'll just ban cell phones. We ought to had to wear helmets. That was something that dumb, and I'm right along with it. So make sure, again, this is under week 5. Make sure you read through this as you're composing your answer this week. Make sure that you read through this this document that I have on cyberbullying. Again, it's under week 5, not 4, because 4 is our case study. So it's there. All right. So now I keep referencing our case study. I want to talk to you about our case study for next week. Let me see. I'll have to go back here and go to case study 1. All right. So we're talking about, be sure you've read chapters 6 and 8 in the Quincy Preference Guide to School Law. We're looking at due process, substantive procedure, standards of arbitrary and capricious. We're also going to look at zero tolerance suspensions. We're looking at ethical paradigm. Now, let me quickly explain what a zero tolerance suspension is. And this is in the North Carolina Disciplinary Data Reporting Manual. We've got several links to this, and throughout our course, we're going to spend pretty much a whole night on this a little bit later. And it says that we have to report no tolerance expulsions to the Office of Civil Rights because they are a violation of civil rights. They are illegal. And that's when we put a kid out, mandatory expulsion of a kid. It says an action taken by the local education agency, that's an LEA or school district, of removing a child from his or her regular school for the remainder of the year or longer because of zero tolerance policies. A zero tolerance policy is a policy that results in mandatory expulsion of any student who commits one or more specified offenses, usually guns, weapons, combination of guns, weapons, violence. A policy is considered zero tolerance even if there's some exception, like allowing them to go to a alternative placement. So in our case coming up this week, Bobby, now I'm going to make sure everybody understands from the very beginning. Bobby does not seem, and his family do not seem like very nice people. And I'm quite sure that Bobby has probably deviled his teacher all year long. that is immaterial. Don't get caught up in the politics of Bobby's family, Bobby's uncle, those kinds of things. When we do case studies, you must stick to the facts of the case. Yeah, everybody knows a lot of Bobbies, unfortunately. Yeah, and so don't get hung up on Bobby, but that Bobby's, you know, that Bobby's not a good person, or that Bobby's, you know, deviling everybody, and Bobby's family thinks that they're above it. Don't get caught up in that. Always look at cases from the law and ethical concern piece of it. So we know now that Bobby got caught cheating, and he admitted that he cheated. And the policy of the school said that he could receive a failing grade on the activity, not for the year. But Bobby was given a grade that counted more than half his yearly grade on one daily assignment, and he failed for the year. Now, now they're going to let him go to summer school. But now, remembering, that fits the example of a zero tolerance expulsion. He can't go to school for a whole year. Or the option is he's got to go to an alternative placement for the summer. So he's out based on, you know, the teacher failed him for the year. That's an expulsion. It's a zero tolerance. It's illegal. It's not gun or violence. He cheated on a class assignment. Now, what you've got to look at is the teacher. People say, well, maybe the teacher didn't know the grading policy. Every teacher knows the grading policy. Every district has it. It's in the front of your teacher handbook. Your district has it on their website, what the grading policy is. In North and South Carolina, the state exam can't count but between 20 and 30% of the final grade, the final exam, the final state exam, the EOG or the EOC. And this teacher made a normal class daily assignment count more than half the yearly grade. What's the ethics of that? What's the legality of that? Is that right? Do you need to talk, you know, this notion of we always supposed to support teachers. Do you support teachers when they're wrong and illegal? You know, didn't your mother tell you if your friend jumped off the roof, would you jump off the roof with them? I mean, what are you going to do here? Don't focus on the politics. Focus on the law. This is a zero tolerance expulsion. That's against the law. This does not follow the local district's grading policy. Class assignments can't count more than 10%. So this, on the course of a yearly average, is probably less than 1 point. How do you, and even that's if you fail the assignment. Go to your district's code of conduct. Look at it. What does it say the penalty for cheating is? Most of it is take up the assignment and get in school suspension for a day, or fail the assignment and move on. Or I mean, in nobody's world does plagiarizing a daily assignment lead to a no tolerance expulsion, a zero tolerance expulsion. I mean, obviously this is why this is our case here, but do not get caught up in who Bobby is or that Bobby has made our hair fall out all year long. He's been in the pain in the neck or somewhere about 3 feet south of that all year. Don't get caught up in that. Look at the ethical concern, and think about what would you do if you had a teacher like that. Obviously, she knew that she was wrong. She went straight to the union to try to give her protection and cover. Would you want to try to keep this person working for you, with children? So make sure that you focus on the case, the legal part, and not the political part of the case. All right, what should the principal course of action be? That's what I just addressed. Be sure to address issues of due process, substantive and procedural. Substantive is, what does your policy say on cheating? And was that carried out in a manner consistent with what the policy said? Substance is, what's the policy? That's why I said look in your code of conduct and see what it says on cheating. The district I worked in the last 15 years, the policy was they can make up the work for a reduced grade in one day of ISS. He got excluded for a year. Seems a little much. And then, so procedure is what you carried out. Substance is what it was supposed to be. Procedure is what did you do. So obviously they didn't carry out, the process they carried out was not the procedure that was supposed to be. And then look at arbitrary and capricious. Arbitrary is Samantha and I get caught smoking out back at the gym. They bring us back in and they tell Samantha to go ahead and go back to class and just take me out the other side of the building and shoot me. That would be arbitrary. That's be punished one and not the other. And the other standard, which this case is about, is capricious. That means giving too much punishment. The punishment doesn't fit the crime.
Doesn't fit the crime.
That's what capricious is. We excluded a kid for a year for cheating on a class assignment. I mean, that's just beyond, I mean, that's too much. But you know, the thing about these case studies, the reason they're case studies is because somebody's done this. And so even though it sounds irrational, it happens. One of my former students, Monique Hennigan, sent me an email today. We're going to have a case study. We Are Normal Too, that's coming up in a few weeks, Jimmy and Willie, where the principal banned Jimmy and Willie for the prom because they're gay. We'll get into that one. And you'd say, well, you know, nobody's going to do that in this day and age. I beg to differ.
I beg to differ too.
Let's see. I had it queued up a minute ago, and of course, you know how that always works. There it is. There it is right there. Principal that's retiring already announced. I've already got the replacement on the way out the door. Has decided that we'll deny this kid the right to come to the prom or graduation over dress code violation. That because their dress doesn't match their gender. Now this principal thinks, you know, I'm out the door. You know, I can do this and nobody can touch me. As we'll find out later on, there is liability for your action, personal liability. You can get sued as an individual for doing something like this. And so the case studies that we have this summer, people think, well, nobody'd be dumb enough to fail a kid for a whole year, excluding for a whole year over a cheating on a class assignment. Yeah, they would. Nobody'd be dumb enough to ban a gay kid from the prom just because they're gay. Well, yeah, they would. That is correct. So take these cases seriously. There's a lot of learning and a lot of different things that we can get out of these cases. And so, unfortunately, it's true. Yeah, Kareem said that's his neighboring county. All right, so that's very title. Yeah, Katie's talking about people feeling entitled. Yeah, very real. Case is very real. Yeah. Yeah. But we can't, you know, public school was designed for the masses. Here's a little soapbox for you. We had private schools in this country before we had a country. Harvard University was founded in the 1600s. Before we had a country, we had private schools for the affluent. Public schools were allowed for in the preamble of the Constitution. States may provide for the populace, for poor people, poor and working people. That doesn't mean that well-to-do people shouldn't or can't come to public schools. But we can't get away from the notion of the buying of the indulgences that you borrow from the Catholic Church. If you want to pay for your child to have advantages, go to private school. I don't have a problem with that. But public schools, we're supposed to be beacons of democracy. We're supposed to uphold the same standards for everybody, regardless of your class or your wealth. That's who we are. It's what we do. When we start allowing well-to-do parents to dominate our schools and tell us how we're going to discriminate and unbalance the scales, that's not what we're about. So again, forget the politics of the first case. I'm not saying they aren't there, but you'll go a lot further in the world if you do the right thing rather than, like this case, do the wrong thing because it's popular in your community. I'll remind you again, as I did last week, you are professional staff. You're not an elected official. You do something like this, you lose your house. Elected officials have certain protections and insurance and liability that you don't have as professional staff. You do something like that, even though every politician in your district may cheer you, yay, when you go to court, you be by yourself. You need to remember that you're a professional staff. You can't do things like that and expect that there won't be tremendous backlash, that there won't be a penalty to pay. Just like the clerk in Kentucky who refused to sell the gay people the marriage license, she's lost everything. She got a sizable judgment against her in civil court. Those people that were championing her and right on, and the former governor, yay! I bet they're not stroking her a check either. You do the right thing because it's the right thing, but do it also to protect yourself from liability. All right. Anybody? Let me catch this last question. I'm by myself tonight. Yeah, that's correct. So anybody have any questions about our case study, what the expectation is? Let me go back to that. All right, so you get together with your Zoom team. You do a quick and dirty PowerPoint. It doesn't have to be long, 3 or 4 pages, whatever you got on your PowerPoint. Make sure that you address those substantive and procedure. What's the policy in your district? Did they follow the policy? What's the grading policy? Arbitrary and capricious. What's the penalty for cheating? Do your homework. Do your homework on that. And then look at the ethical paradigms. Look at the ethical paradigm. And again, if you don't remember where those, yeah, you can put the PowerPoint in. I've got a Dropbox for it. Under case study 1, that's a great question. Under case study 1, here's your case. Let me move that out of the way. Here's your case, and then I have case study drop boxes right here on top of it, and you can right here is the case study 1 group assignment. This is where you put your PowerPoint, and then case study 1 reflection that you write personally, what you took away from the case. It's under the drop boxes. I've also got when we get to, I've got a couple of I've got a legal finding here. That's a internet site that I have in that, but and so make sure that you understand case study 1. You need to read the Principal's Guide, chapter 6 and 8, the Hatcha book. Move this out of the way. But again, it's just the case itself. I just have it in several places. Get out of that. But again, under case study drop boxes is you have the cases again, and then you have the drop boxes for the assignments. Now on the reflection, I'm not interested in War and Peace. I'm not interested in War and Peace, and so the question was from Melissa, does it matter? Yeah, if it were me, again, it's just if it were me.
You gotta put
One second. Okay, I got it. If it were me, I would wait till after. But you don't have to. If you want to write, you know, about the process, what you've learned, if you want to talk about working with your colleagues, you know, I like to kind of hear everybody's thoughts and ideas before I formulate my own in terms of what my takeaway is on this. Might be something that hits me new. But now I'm not going to slow you down. If you want to do your reflection up front, that's fine. But I just kind of like to hear everybody's perspective, and it helps me shape my thoughts and ideas when I'm talking about reflecting back on what really struck a chord with me. What did I really learn? I am a big believer in reflective practice. I'm an excessive note taker. I've got notebooks right here next to me right now. They're full. They're full of notes. This one right here, I keep 2. I write myself notes all day long. I mean, all day. You can see I've got this all day long. I write myself notes. It's force of habit, but it also helps me to reflect and think. I write things down. My wife says, I forget. I say, write it down. I forget too, but write it down. That, you know, I think reflection really helps our practice. You know, I take notes when I keep a notepad. When I grade your work, I write down things that strike me. That, you know, or if I see 4 or 5 things, 4 or 5 of you that missed something in a discussion board or a task, guess whose fault that was? I know that's me. I missed that. And so, again, I like to wait until after the presentations, but don't wait on me. If you want to go ahead and do yours, I think that's great. Let me go back to our chat. When is the PowerPoint due? By the following by so we'll do the presentations next Wednesday, and you need to put them into the you'll need them by next Wednesday, because you're actually gonna show them, and I'm gonna make y'all the host, and y'all are gonna do the presentations next Wednesday, and then anytime by Sunday you just drop them in the Dropbox. But you're gonna need it next Wednesday in class, because I'm just gonna say who goes first, host, or I'm gonna pick one, and you know, I usually go in, and sometimes students email me there, so they think they might get in front of the line, and so, but I'll pick one and we'll just go. I'm hoping we can all go next week. Okay, where do we put the peer reviews? Okay, so you see over here it says peer reviewing. It talks about the process, and so you come to OMA assignment Dropbox. Now, you know, if you're doing it for your classmate, you put it back where you got it in discussion board. But to get your grade on it, you come to the assignment Dropbox, and right here's where the final one, when, you know, so if Kayla does one for Stephanie, Kayla puts it back on Stephanie's thread in discussion board to give her feedback, and then Kayla then takes and puts it in here to get her grade. Now, I read those and I comment on them even in discussion board, and then you get your grade when you come to OMA assignment Dropbox. You do the same thing with the skip. It'll be in there as well. You'll have a place to put your peer reviews. It's a great question. Okay. Does everybody in the group need to submit the PowerPoint? Everybody's got to put it in the Dropbox. Everybody's got to put it in. Everybody's got to put it in their Dropbox to get credit for it. Doesn't have to be but one presentation. Y'all just share it, send it to one another. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't make it hard. But just get a copy, and everybody needs to upload their own. But you're right. Yeah, you just make one presentation, put everybody's name on it, and everybody has a copy. I do not want separate presentations. No, I want this is a collaborative group project. Remember, we started out, we're moving through, and we're learning more and more higher level skills as we go. we're working on this semester, we're working on developing collaborative projects. You know, we've been doing peer review, which is giving collaborative feedback. This semester, we're working on a collaborative project. And you'll really do some really good stuff with Dr. Stone next semester once you've done that. But that's what we're doing is, and so how timely with the COVID and everybody having to work on Zoom from home, people are figuring out, man, this is not as easy as we thought it would be, doing a project without being able to get together face to face, having to kind of, you know, do it over Zoom and assign roles or responsibilities and put it all together. Ooh, this is not as easy as we thought it was. Well, I already knew that because we've been trying to do this now. We've been doing this for 4 years. So it's not as easy as it looks. That's part of, I said that as the reflection, you know, that might be part of what you reflect on is, man, wasn't the content that threw us for a loop, it was the process. How do you get together and do a collaborative project and you're not even in the same state, much less the same building? That's part of the learning process. And so this semester, what, you know, our goal with case studies obviously is to learn content, but our goal with our collaborative groups is to how do you produce a product, an original piece of work in a virtual collaboration environment. That's one of those big rocks in digital learning that you're supposed to be able to do. And as we can see, because schools had to close this spring, how timely is this? It's almost like somebody had a crystal ball. No, it's, again, you can try to ban cell phones and, you know, and be backwards toward technology if you want to, or you can embrace it and move on. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here, is trying to embrace it. We've been doing this for a number of years now. As I said, 4 years we've been doing this, where we take you from doing peer review as a group activity to a collaborative. And then next semester, Dr. Stone will take you even further, where you'll start doing analysis and other things in your groups, which is another level on top of group presentations. But yes, just make one presentation, put everybody's name on the first opening slide, on the dial slide, send it to everybody so that everybody can upload it in the Dropbox. But when, you know, as long as one of you's got it next week, we're all good. All right. Let me see. Let me catch the rest of these chats. All right. So Dr. Massengill is here. All right. So welcome, Dr. Massengill. All right. So we've worked through all the way through all the questions about those things now. Our case study. It's 7:45. We're about where I was hoping we would be by this time, that we'd have a little bit of time. So this week, we started introducing our EC and 504 and an intervention, our special programs. There is a rather lengthy PowerPoint that I'm not going to cover in depth tonight, but I want you to start spending some time with it, because our last case study is about this. But our last case study pulls everything that we've done, classes, schedules, parent involvement with the skip, but we put it all together in our last case study. But the heart of that case study is about the inclusion process. And if you're not up to speed on what inclusion is versus mainstreaming, I have a really good PowerPoint here for you. And it's lengthy, but it goes through a lot, but it talks about these things. If you're not aware of what that is, inclusion is where the teacher comes to the room. Mainstreaming is where the kid goes to the teacher. It's not that simple. You need to spend some time with that PowerPoint. Again, it's under week 3. I've got a link to the parent resources website. And again, I told you that you better become an EC expert, because parents will be, because they have resources like this. I've got a link to the FERPA website here, which is our Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. And this says how you have to handle, like, you can't talk to one parent about another person's child, can't divulge records, you can't give information out. If you're not familiar with FERPA guidelines, you need to spend some time on this website. Again, I'm not going to sit and go through all these things. But like crosstalk in the teacher's lounge or in the cafeteria about this kid or that kid, or the custody situation with their parents, you know, the results of his testing, you know, this kid, if his IQ was 2 points less, he'd be a stump, an inanimate object. You know, you can't say stuff like that in the teacher's lounge. That's actually a FERPA violation. If you have knowledge of those kinds of kids, I mean, so if you're not familiar, you need to go to this website with FERPA. That kind of guides what we do. Get out of that. Now, my top 10, and we'll cover more of these later. I have, of those, zero tolerance. That's the 6th most important thing that you need to understand about school law. FERPA is, you know, abuse, neglect, harassment. That's number 7. FERPA is number 8. Due process, arbitrary and capricious, 9 and 10. So we're right in that sweet spot of these are real important things that you better know about in terms of liability, in terms of getting sued. These are the things that you're most likely to get sued or lose your job over. Losing your job comes first with persistently dangerous and then these other things. But these are very important things, and so I've listed that. So FERPA's number 8, zero tolerance, that we talked about earlier tonight with our case study with Bobby, is number 6. So I've just, this is just my list of the things that are most likely to cause you pain and sorrow. And so as you can see, giving out information on kids makes the top 10. So don't, you know, so don't do that. Let me see what else I had for us tonight. Remember this lesson plan role of the principal. You can find that under the directions for task 1. I mean, for case study 1. When you click on case study 1, you'll see up here, you click on this to get the role of the principal. That has your 4 ethical paradigms. So make sure you do the legal part first, and then you do the ethical piece. We've already talked about intervention. We talked about reporting no tolerance. Gen's 10 are the 10 most important things to know about. I just closed it accidentally, so I'll pull it back up right quick. This was from a EC director that I worked with at a point in the past. She was actually not only did I work with her, she was my student. And this was her top 10, so I always give people credit. 2006, which is 14 years ago, we had 10 million special needs children. I think that's up to about 12 million now. Remember Public Law 94-142 we talked about 2 weeks ago. Education of Handicapped Children Act in 1975. Least restrictive environment, we talked about that. Civil rights, IDA, free appropriate evaluations, IAPs, 90-day process before a child can be tested, and now MTSS 60 to 90 on top of that. So these are the things to remember on Gen's 10 that you should know about exceptional children's programs. One of your activities this week was to sit in on an IAP conference and figure out who was in charge, who does the paperwork, how decisions are made, those kinds of things. All right, so that leads me to, I'm actually running 2 minutes late. That leads me to the skip. As I said, congratulations to Katie. She's the first to get to the end of the OMA. So let's look at the skip task and prompts right quick. So let me send this. All right, so we're going to shift gears with the skip, and we're going to start looking at, let me move that out of the way. We're going to start looking at how we can involve parents to help us. Basically, let us help you help us educate your child. And so when we look at the skip, we're going to start with a needs assessment determining gaps in communication between the school and parents or the school community, those stakeholders. Now, it's just that simple. This is where different places in these evidences people go wrong. Where people go wrong on this when they don't read the first 2 sentences. They see needs assessment in the first sentence and then they skip everything after that. I don't want an academic needs assessment. We've already done that. I don't want an assessment of the schedule. We've already done that. I don't want an assessment of staff development. We've already done that. I don't want an assessment of managing student behavior. We're going to do that later. I want an assessment of gaps in communication, period. Now, you can go to Advanced Ed Report. You can go to Teacher Working Condition Survey. You can go to your district's parent survey. Most districts do a parent survey. You can go to any of those 3 or all of those 3 and pull data. And if you don't have, you can send your own. But we're looking for gaps in communication, period. Not other gaps, not academic, no. Gaps in communication. Because we have a purpose for doing this. All right, then we're going to get a background description of the setting. You've already done that. You just copy and paste that from previous evidence. It's a clear statement of purpose and needs assessment. Again, the clear statement of purpose is determine the gaps in communication between school and the stakeholder community. The list of participants, who was involved in this. Analysis of the findings, a set of recommendations that will be established, and that would be short and long term. Now, don't get this wrong. Remember, short term are things like use Twitter, start a web page, use Facebook, use something modern. Again, don't be a Luddite like me. Use modern technology to help you, not harm you. We're not going to ban cell phones. We're not going to get off the Twitter age. We're not going to become Luddites and get away from electricity. Then embrace it. Find ways that you can better communicate with parents using social media, using technology, whatever it takes. That's short term. And don't tell me that, well, we're going to work on a website next year, so that's long. No, that's still just an extension of short term. Long term is what you're going to do now that you've got them hooked. Now that you're communicating with them, your long term goals should be things like family math night, family curriculum night, family EOG night, family EOC night. The whole point of hooking these people and communicating with them is to get them on your campus. Let us help you help your child. Family math night, here's some manipulatives. Here's some things you can do with your child. Let us help you educate your child. That's long term. Short term, digital communication. Long term, events on your campus. See, having parents come to your school won't make your test scores go up unless it's curricularly based. If just getting parents to come to your school made your test scores go up, in the western part of the state, we'd have a womanless wedding. In the Piedmont, we'd have a barbecue. In the eastern part of the state, we'd have, a donkey basketball game, and we'd kill it. we'd have thousands coming in. They'd come.
Dr. Lamb, I went to a KA school that had a donkey basketball game, so that's no joking matter.
I'm not making that up.
Meadow School in Johnston County before they tore it down and built a new one. When it was K8, I had the same principal my mama did. And he was just as mean with me as he was with her.
That's exactly right. And see, I grew up a few years before Dr. Massengill in the western part of the state, and we had what was known as a womanless wedding, where all the men dressed up in dresses. I can't make this up. That was a big thing back in the 50s and 60s. And people would walk for miles to see that. School was packed to see a womanless wedding. And of course, where I live now in Lake Norman is the heart of the Piedmont. Everybody has a barbecue. You know,
a donkey basketball game is exactly what it sounds like for those of you who are asking that on the chat.
It's exactly what it
sounds like. It's donkeys playing basketball.
I went to undergraduate school in Raleigh at NC State, and all of my friends were from Eastern North Carolina. And I think I went to Goldsboro and saw a donkey basketball game at one of them's high school. Speechless. Just speechless. I'm not eloquent enough to describe it. But we used to do events like that at schools to get people to come out. And then, of course, ball games. There would be 20,000 people in the what was it, the run that Independence High School made from 2000 to 2010. They won 8 or 9 or 10 straight state 4AA titles. They had Friday night at Independence out in Mint Hill, the town size would quadruple, even in a big county like Mecklenburg. They'd have 40,000 people come to the ball game on Friday night. Never seen anything like it. As big as a college game, bigger, but didn't make their test scores go up. Nor did the donkey basketball game or the barbecue or the womanless wedding. None of that made the test scores go up. But if you get parents in and do family math night with them, if you get parents in and do family EOC or family college night, those kinds of things where your content focused on curriculum, you'd be amazed at how you can move your school. But just them coming to a step team or a basketball game, that won't make your scores go up. We're going to communicate better with parents and get them. They'll know when a ball game is, but they won't know when you're having family math night. You got to find a vehicle to communicate with them. And then there's got to be some substance, some content once you get them there. It can't just be come and eat spaghetti with us. No, there's got to be some content. There's got to be something that we're going to do with them. And then after you've done task one, prompt two, you're going to take your teacher working conditions survey or your advanced ed report, look at school leadership, not teacher leadership, school leadership, and look at things that might help to improve the administration with an eye toward parent and involvement and those kinds of things. It doesn't have to be, but look at that. And then you're simply going to identify the resources in task 2 that it takes to do your short-term goals, your long-term goals, your family math night, any administrative recommendations. Usually those don't cost anything, but you know, the money and the people, I like to see people's names and I like to see dollar signs. How you going to do those things? And then you put together your marketing plan. You use the same graphic organizer we use for all of our action plans. Persons responsible, timeline, the money, resources, indicator of success, goal, formative, summative assessment, and then you write your competencies. This one should be the quickest one you've done so far. I mean, literally, this is a 2-weeker at best. So, and we've got, Katie, we've got folks ready to go, so don't let me hold you back. So go ahead and do that. All right, so Johnson County has a new superintendent. Who was doing the interim?
Dr. Cosby, and then he quit, and then Ben Williams, I think.
Yeah, Ben Williams. That's it.
Yeah, Ben Williams took it.
Yeah, and so now they have hired.
Dr. Bracy from Sampson County.
Yeah, I was going to say it's down going toward Wilmington,
Mhm.
where Dr. Massengill is now, down in that area. Yeah, from Sampson, down below Clinton.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, I thought so. Well, that sounds good. All right, I'm gonna open up the floor. Thank you, Andrea. I'm gonna stop my share. Again, welcome Dr. Massengill with us. I don't know if we've got anybody else with us tonight. Again, Dr. Stedman was going to see about one of our students who had a medical issue this afternoon, and so hopefully we'll hear back from him. Dr. Massengill and Dr. Tobias have class on Wednesday night as well, and so thank you for joining us. Remember, we'll talk probably, in terms of task stream, we haven't really generated a lot of artifacts yet. We will generate some more artifacts this semester, and I worked in task stream late last night, and so we'll start working. We'll worry about our competency folio when we get everybody to the skip. You got to get through kind of the OMA to get some artifacts generated, and then we'll talk about putting those in your competency folio in task stream. But we're not quite there yet. If you remember how and want to go in and you've got some, that'll be fine. I'll cover that the week after our first case study. So that will be 2 weeks from tonight. We'll talk about competency folios. We should all be to the point where we have plenty of competencies, folio artifacts by then. So that will be great. So we'll talk about that in 2 weeks. Tonight, I appreciate you being with me tonight. Your work, again, I have zero complaints, and you know me, I'd be the first to scream and yell and throw stuff, but I have zero complaints. Looking at faces here, I've seen some great work from Kayla, Kishlin, across the board, everybody. Paulette, Melissa, Erica, I can't. I mean, everybody's work's been great. Your discussion boards, you're taking those very, very forthrightly, very seriously, and you're doing your research on those. Your evidence work is great. I hadn't had one of those that I wasn't very happy with. You're coming right along. I'm so excited about the case study next week. They make me get in a room by myself to do those because I get excited and throw stuff and holler and scream. So I'm looking forward to next week. Dr. Massengill, he's laughing because he knows I'm telling the truth. We get exercised on those, but that's great. That's good. So I'm looking forward to that next week. If you want to email me yours, you don't have to. If you put it in Blackboard, I'll read it and I'll download it from there. But I'll make you the host, or I can be the host according to what your technology. Either way, and we'll do your presentations next week. I appreciate you being with me again tonight. Prayers for everybody. Thank you. I'll see you next week.